Welcome to Author Nation Interviews. Today, we are diving into some solutions for problems that are tough to talk about, and how to write about them is actually the topic of the day. So I'm Melody Ann. I am your host. This is Author Nation Interviews, and we want you to be able to write your own book that talks about things that are hard to talk about. That's what we're going to tackle today. So visit authornation.online if you want a treasure trove of resources to help you write your book. And we're getting to it. So if you're sipping your morning coffee or maybe driving home from work, settle in. Let me introduce our guest. Mitch Francis. It has an extensive 40-year business background. He created and has been the CEO of both publicly traded companies and privately owned companies. He developed and continues to own and manage commercial real estate through the United States. And in 2024, he launched a new book called Badass Solutions. Let's welcome Mitch Francis. Hey, Mitch, how are you today?
Great, Melanie. How are you?
I'm fabulous. You know what? I'm so excited to talk about this because it's one of those books that it's like, wow, that was daring. So I think it's a very daring book. So I want firstly, why a book? Why not a podcast or this or that? Why a book?
It's funny that you're asking that. I had no intention of writing a book. I actually had a family tragedy about 2.5 years ago. You may remember there was a mass killing in a suburb of Chicago during a 4th of July parade. And some crazed young man with assault rifles killed 7 people and wounded a lot more. And one of the people that he killed was my brother-in-law's brother.
Oh.
And yeah, thanks. And needless to say, the family was just devastated. I was hurt by this. I really liked this guy, a fabulous guy, and I left angry. And I got home and I looked around. And I said, we've got all these really big problems that nobody's doing anything about, and it kind of kicked my ass, actually, Melody. That I kind of took stock of myself, and I'm a kind of guy that I always like news. I like current events. And I go, well, why don't they just do that? I do that all the time. So I just said, you know what? I've got ideas for a lot of our problems. I'm just going to write an outline. And I sat down and I wrote an outline just over a couple of days. And I ended up with 20 big ass problems that I had at least the beginnings of really good solutions for. And I went, this is crazy. This is a book. And I went in, I showed my wife, and I said, I think I'm actually going to write a book. And that was 2.5 years ago. And now I have Badass Solutions.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to write a book. What was her reaction?
She said, oh, yeah. She said, there's a book there. She was very supportive.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. She wasn't like, a book? What? Brilliant.
I don't think many things I do surprise her, actually.
Oh, that's good. So I'm glad you said that. Like 20 big ass problems that you have, at least a good beginning of a solution. So I'm going to ask you, I know it's about lots of different problems, but really, if you think about like that core of your book, what is the book about?
It's a very optimistic book. Many books that talk about, the problems of the day dive real deeply into the problems of the day. And I gave this kind of aerial view of each problem. So somebody had, the background of understanding what we're talking about. But this is about solutions, solving these problems. So my whole approach was really optimistic. I wasn't under this dark cloud with all these huge, horrible problems. I'm excited. We have solutions that are actually doable. So I left this and participated in it from a really nice, positive direction.
Yeah. And a lot of these ideas or a lot of these problems are really complex. And I think that's part of the reason it's hard to solve them because they are really complex. And so, you know, bringing them to simpler terms can be really useful. And you being excited as the author is also really useful because it probably helps you write a really engaging book. How else do you think that you helped keep your writing really engaging while talking about these huge
Mm.
problems?
That's a very insightful question you're asking, because I saw, as I was looking at this, that this could be dry, this could be, I didn't want it to be academic, which would make it even drier. And my nature is kind of more upbeat, and I thought, I need humor in this, to engage the audience and make this interesting. And I've always been a quote guy. I've collected quotes for decades. So at the beginning of each chapter, I put in 3 or 4 relevant quotes from very famous people, typically, that are interesting and very funny. So, like, for just an example, like for solving the problem with public schools, how bad public schools are, and I have an amazing solution for fixing public schools. But I found a great quote from a comedian named Dennis Miller, who said, you really have a big problem with education when you realize that out of the 3 R's, only one begins with an R. So it's not hysterical, but it made it kind of lighter and put a perspective on what we're doing. And I think I
Yeah.
made the book very enjoyable to read. I tried to very hard.
Yeah. And another question, and maybe, you can talk about schools in particular, or another issue in particular when answering it. You really wanted this to be nonpartisan. And in today's world, everything is like, what? Nonpartisan? Impossible, right? So you're nonpartisan while talking about these controversial issues like public school. So how did you do that?
Well, that was kind of my set of rules to start off with this. That I'm upset, as I think most people are, by party politics. And I think it just serves to get in the way. So they're polarized, and there's no workable land in between. So that's why nothing happens. So I approached trying to find solutions away from anything to do with party politics. And I was only interested in finding a viable solution. Melody, I didn't even care how much it costs.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care about politics. I didn't care how much it costs. Just tell me how to fix this thing. And I tell you something, amazingly, I can't even, from the top of my head, I can't even think of a solution I have that didn't actually turn out to be economically viable as well. So it just worked. And I think part of what I realized just living is, maybe I'm in my own little cocoon, but it seems that everybody I know is conservative on some things and liberal on other things. And I like that. I think that, that really gives me hope that if we can move away from the polarized politics, we can solve things with real people. So that's where I am.
Yeah. And I'm I'm Canadian, you are American, and so I'm
I
certainly not
won't hold that against you. No.
Yeah. I'm certainly not going to speak about your politics, but I think that if we really sit down, people who on the surface don't agree with things, and we really sit people down in a room and ask what's actually really important to them, you're going to find out that a lot of it is the same. I need food to eat. I need a shelter. I want to feel loved. I want to feel safe. I want my children to feel safe, right? Like, I think that those very basics are the same. Is that?
I couldn't agree more. And I think it even extends farther into the specifics of the problem. It's like, well, we all want better education for kids. We all want guns taken care of, assault rifles. We want answers for that. We want in the U.S. we want the deficit paid off. We want all of us want to see the ocean levels stop rising. So, and then when politics get in, it's, well, how do we get there? That muddies up the problem. But we all
Yeah.
seem to want the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. And talking about ocean levels rising, it's a really good segue because I have a question kind of about facts and data and storytelling. So it's easy for the scientists to come out and say, we predict that, ocean levels are going to rise, blah, blah, blah. And we predict that the temperature is going to rise, da, da, da. But, that's not very moving. Stories are moving. So do you tell stories in your book, and maybe tell us about some of the stories that you tell?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that, because I did go that way where I could, and I have a great tool I basically used, that worked really well in the ocean levels rising. And it's dry. You're just dealing with facts and figures, and I, maybe in my own simple mind, I need some relationship to what the numbers mean. And
Yes.
I was, going through, all this analysis and trying to figure out, like, one of my initial questions was, well, how much water are we talking about? The global warming is causing the polar ice caps to melt, and it's raising the ocean levels. And I couldn't work on solving the problem without finding out, well, how much water are we talking about? And I got involved, and I started, finding all the statistics. And my 11th grade algebra teacher would be very happy, because I worked through this with algebra, and I found, and I made it a relatable statistic that knocks me out and other people I've told about. It suddenly becomes real, where I say that the polar ice caps are melting at a rate that would fill 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools every second.
Yeah.
So I do tell some stories,
Yeah.
about myself, or about an issue, or about, things that happened with Russia, during World War II, or China during World War II, that we were actually allies, which is kind of surprising to most people. But then I found a tool that, with statistics, you can explain them in a way that makes them touchable. So
Yeah.
20 Olympic-sized swimming pools every second is pretty damn touchable.
Yes, that I can see that, right? I can visualize that, and it's much more concrete for me than just dry statistics. And so I'm assuming that
Yeah,
you
right.
want.
Excuse me. Sorry for interrupting. What
Yes,
that
yes,
translates to is 45 cubic metric ocean units of water. Well, that doesn't
right.
mean anything,
No, it means nothing.
No.
Exactly. Yeah, no, so I like that. That was a really great example. Thank you so much for that. And so I guess from here, my next question is, okay, so you've taken this dry stat, you've created something that I can visualize, that I can understand. How do you then move me from this awareness to action as a reader?
My overriding goal with the book was to get people to find one or two or three solutions in the book that touched them, that was
Mm,
meaningful to them, that would cause them to get their ass off the sofa and
yes.
do something. Listen, you don't have to do a lot. I told you I was into quotes. There's a fabulous quote that I kind of made an overriding theme of the book, which is from Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "When the people lead, the leaders will follow."
Mm,
So it's my hope that people will take my solution for the rising ocean levels, if it touches them, and tell their family, tell their
mhm,
friends, and at
mhm.
the very least, write to your representatives. We
Mm,
tend to forget that they work for us. We don't work for them.
yes.
Write to them, and with enough groundswell of people, we can make a difference. We really can. And then you can get much deeper involved. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, my last chapter is called "So Now What?" and it describes how each one of us can get involved, deeper and deeper, including, joining, one of the thousands of organizations that exist on every topic that you could possibly be interested in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's all there.
Excellent. Yeah, and I love the idea of that last chapter. It's like, okay, so now what? What do I do? Right? Because that's often we're left. We hear these big stats and they don't really mean much and it's
Yeah.
supposed to be scary and then it's done and we're sitting here thinking, well, now what? What do I just go back to work now? Like what's next, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's excellent. So if you'd like to learn more about Mitch, you can find more information at bad asssolutions.com. That will also be in the show notes. And I'll also have a link to the book
Thank
in
you.
the show notes as well. So go check out that book. And I remember somebody saying to me, look, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So don't be part of the badass problems, be part of the badass solutions.
I like that. I like
Yeah,
that.
and go grab that book. All right. As we're wrapping up, a couple more questions. Uh, how can authors so you've written this book, kind of what's next for you, like I know you want to make this impact in the world beyond, I'm sure, just writing a book. So what's next for you now you've written this book to turn this into something bigger and more action oriented and get more people on board?
Well, it's much more difficult than I anticipated. I have to tell you,
Yeah,
it's very difficult to get the word out
it is.
and try to to get enough people to read the book,
Yeah,
to make a difference. I do a lot of podcasts, news shows, radio shows, things like that. So I'm trying very hard. Again, my business background is very helpful from a marketing perspective.
yeah,
And it's funny that I really was very ignorant to the idea of doing this, because I thought, oh, you just write a book and you stick it on Amazon and everybody buys it. They say, oh, badass solutions, I like that. And that
yeah,
and that's all you do.
yeah,
Well, was I wrong? So I mean, I think that writers, certainly for first time books, they have to understand what they're up against. That it could be said, and I think it's very true for me, that the easiest part was writing the book. It's very hard then, and time consuming and actually costly to market the book. And there's no guarantee that you're going to reach your market. And it's sobering. So
yeah,
be ready, authors out there, be ready, because you're more of a marketer than an author. You
yeah.
better be.
Yeah, thank you for being honest about that, because there's a lot of, oh, the book's written, it's all awesome, and I know a lot of authors come to me and say, this is not working. What do I do?
Yeah.
And it's a lot, as you said, it's a lot about understanding, just as we do in business, we understand our market, we understand their problems, their needs, their fears, their desires. We develop a product that helps them meet that, and then
Right.
we, after that's done, we have to go out and tell the world about it, right? And
Yeah.
so it's very much, yes, the fact that you have a business background and marketing is going to be very helpful. And but it's not as easy as it's sometimes seen. Books are not like miracle things that just pop up
Right.
and change the world instantly. We still
Right.
have to, unless you're Nelson Mandela and you've written a book and everybody wants to read it or something like
Totally
that.
different. Yeah. Totally different. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
This business guy, people have to understand what he's about to be interested in buying that book, for sure.
Exactly. All right. So as we're wrapping up, if you were to give 3 pieces of advice to authors who are listening in and they're like, yeah, I want to write a book like this. If you like lessons learned, what would be your like 3 go do this now?
Very interesting. Uh, First thing I would say is know, line up who you can get help from.
Mm,
There are some wonderful groups, certainly like you, Melody, to consult with all the way along the path of, writing your book well, doing it correctly, making it interesting, making it marketable, all the way through, all the way then all the way through the publishing phases and everything else. So there's a lot of help that you can find, and you're going to need it. You're just going to need it. So I think that's an overriding issue. Second issue, I'd say have a lot of passion and have fun with it. Otherwise, don't do it. Life's too short, and this is not a walk in the park. So if you're going to write a book, have fun with it. Make it something that you're going to be proud of for the rest of your life, whether or not you even sell many books. And then finally, let's jump back to, don't kid yourself. You got to be a marketer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Or have a business that has a marketing strategy that you can integrate the book into, because that also works, right?
But that's what I'm saying, that you can tell people that.
Yes.
They don't know that intrinsically. So go to Melody.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Any final words? Where can we reach you? How can we connect?
You can reach me through the website of bad-asssolutions.com. There's email. You can reach me pretty easily. Mitch, I come with props. So. But no, I think the best way is through the website, and the book is really easily available on Amazon. I did just record an audiobook that'll be out in about a month.
Nice.
So and that's an interesting thing. I didn't realize it, but audiobooks are accounting for 30 to 50% of book sales right now.
Oh yes.
Wow.
Yep, they've been trending up for years. Yeah. So they started out really small, and the percentages that they're trending up are huge. But of course, they started out small, but they're huge now. It's a big thing. People are.
I didn't realize it was that big. Amazing.
Yeah, people are listening. They're listening when they're driving. They're listening doing chores. They're listening getting ready. They're listening. People are listening. Yeah.
I hope they don't get tired of my voice.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you did an audiobook. I think that is awesome. So yeah, so once again, find Mitch at bad-asssolutions.com. All right, let's wrap up. Thank you for joining us at Author Nation. I hope this conversation has provided you with some valuable insights and some inspiration too, to start talking about things that are difficult and making them plain and simple for people, giving them good examples and stories. Don't forget to visit authornation.online for your wealth of resources. And I always want to tell you that I really appreciate you being here, listening to us, your feedback and your support. And if you have enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who needs it. I know you know another author who needs this right now. Share it with them so they can benefit. And go ahead, review. We'd love to hear what you think. We love your comments, and keep writing, keep creating, and keep continuing to share your stories with the world.